everyone. Okay, it looks like we are live. Hi, welcome to Golden Otter Divinations. I am Autumn Seibel. I'm going to turn off that fan. Give me 1 second. I will pop the screen over so you can see something else. All right, give me 1 second. There, that should make that a little bit better. And while everyone's coming on, I'm just going to write welcome. If you're watching live and you can hear me, if you could put a thumbs up in the comment box so that I know that you can hear me, and we will get started. Welcome. Hi, it looks like we have somebody live. I'm just testing my audio. If you could put a thumbs up in the comments. Oh, hi. Hi, Phone 7 Vero. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, please? While I get this going. Welcome. Last but not least. Last but not least. Last. Hi. Oh, welcome. Oh gosh. Okay, I'm going to grab my website link because folks have been asking. And Phone Vera 7, how are you tonight? Thank you for tuning in. Were you able to watch the Pisces? I appreciated your comments and the synchronicity in the timing while you were watching. I went back and read those. Alrighty. Can you guys see me or my screen? I'm new to this, so there we go. Okay, now I can see it. To broadcast. Okay, so for whatever I'm talking about, you guys can check this out. All right. So what we're going to do is I figured this isn't Ask Me Anything. So if you have any questions about Golden Otter Divinations, my manifesting membership, Lunar Manifestations, about anything about mediumship or all things metaphysical, feel free to ask me anything now. We'll be on for like maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes. We'll see how it goes. And then if nobody has questions, I have my, you can see it here. I have my like top stack of books. Oh shoot, I forgot. There's like 1, 2, I left 3 by my bed. Hi everybody. Books by my bedside table, please. Thank you. It looks like I just got bounced off. So I record from rural Africa, and the internet sometimes is like really great, and then we go through these little spats where it's not so great. And so if I ever get bounced off, just wait a second and I'll come back on. And if I'm not back on in a while, then just be like, okay, I'll catch the replay. Because I have talked to like dead air, pun intended, dead screens. I just start talking and keep going until I realize nobody's responded. Oh, so somebody said, okay, I'm going to pin that comment. So somebody said, so tell me about your weird experience. So you said you tuned into, I tuned in initially, probably now 1 year ago because I had weird occurrences. This is how I found your account. All right, tell us about it. I'm curious. So I think I know who you are from Instagram, maybe. If it's the same account that I'm thinking of. I know like our YouTube handles and our Instagram handles aren't always the same, so Oh, okay. How and when would you say you have a connection from a past soul? So I'm not sure if you're talking about a past soul from like your own, like your own past life, or a person. Um, so I'll talk about a person. Uh, so I've talked about it a lot in my membership and at different points. Sorry guys, I'm getting used to my new recording corner because we have homeschool on this side of my office now, and my office, and like my corner is here. Just saying my internet's bad. Okay, I'm so sorry. Hopefully this records. I have, you know what, this records as a copy on my computer. So if the live stream version is just no bueno, I'll upload the version that gets recorded to my desktop. Okay, so the question was, how do you know if you have a connection from a past soul, or like from another life is what I'm guessing that you would say. And so you guys have probably heard me tell the story on my membership in like my lunar manifestations rituals. I think it's the Gemini full moon. It's the Gemini full moon ritual, and it's about twin flames and like how to know when you've met somebody. And maybe I can actually pull that up for you guys. I'll pull it up so we can talk about it. The example that I give is when I met my husband. The day that I met him, we joke that it was an arranged marriage. We don't come from a culture where there are arranged marriages, but my older brother had gone to school with him. They'd gone to university together, and for years he'd been trying to sync us up. And I was always like, no, Augie, I'm not interested in any of your friends. I don't want to meet any of your rugby friends. I don't want to meet any of your ROTC friends. Like, I don't know what any of this stuff means, like Army and officers. And he was always like, there's this great guy, you gotta meet him. I was like, no, I'm not interested. So for about 3 years, I kind of had him on my radar, but like this is pre-Facebook days, this is pre-social media, this is pre-Tinder and dating apps, and I think maybe Match.com was like just sort of starting, but we were in college, so we wouldn't have been using it. And finally, at my older brother's graduation, I actually got to meet my now husband. And it was one of those weird serendipitous moments, and this is to speak to the point of how do you know when you have a past life connection. It's when you look back in reflection, you're going like, gosh, it was just such a weird series of events that ended with us getting married so quickly. Like you'll hear stories of people who are like, oh, I was driving down the highway and then there was like a snowstorm and I had to pull over, and then I got snowed in and I was stuck with this, family whose son was visiting, and we ended up getting married. Like weird coincidences where it's like you wouldn't have seen it coming. And so long story short, I met my husband. I got to see him present all the awards that that his like class was getting. I got to see him receive a bunch of awards, which I was like, oh man, I bet this guy's a jerk. He's getting every award in the book, head of his class. And then I was like, oh, this is why my brother was trying to hook me up with him, but I wasn't really having any of it. But looking back, I just think it's such a funny time sync moment where I got to see the biggest day of his life on the first day that I ever met him. And, maybe that's why I kind of fell in love. But it was just such a unique serendipity, because I could have met him several other times in like the previous 3 years, but it just wasn't really on my radar. And that night after graduation, my older brother introduced us. He said, Autumn, this is your future husband, Dan. Dan's your future wife, Autumn. Just let me know when the wedding is. And like, it was a joke and everybody laughed. And in fact, there's another guy, and we tell this story, who came up to us, and he was at a college bar right after graduation at Penn State. So it's like a big weekend there. And he goes, oh, Autumn, like stay away from Dan. He's for my sister, and you can't have him. And I was like, I literally just met this guy 30 seconds ago. Like, your sister can have him. And it was a joke and it was funny. And then, the weekend unfolded and we ended up hitting it off. And I kind of was like, wow, like, he's a really nice guy. Like, I wonder if there could actually be anything there. And then I had to go back to college. I was going to school in Oregon, so I had to go back to the West Coast. And if nothing else, I just had kind of had like a nice little weekend where I met the nicest guy I had literally ever met. And it changed my perception on men. It changed my ideas on like what a relationship could look like with a decent, kind person. And not that I hadn't had decent and kind relationships before that, but there was just like, it was just next level, like totally different caliber of an individual and totally different caliber of guy than I'd ever really dated. And we left, and I kept thinking about him, but it wasn't like, there was no false urgency. There was no like, oh, if I don't like get back to see this guy, it won't work out. And it was none of that. It was just very calm and almost like preordained. And it sounds so weird and taboo, not taboo, but like just sounds weird to say because I was 21 at the time. And I mean, like even looking back at like the other more rational things I was doing in my life at the time, I didn't have that level of like tranquility and calmness that was kind of pervading this initial meeting. So sometimes they say that when you have like a twin flame relationship or when you are part of like a past life union, whether that's platonic or romantic or whatever type of union it is, there will be this sense of timelessness and this sense of there's like not really a sense of urgency because it's almost like coming home. And I got distracted because I was going to pull up the Gemini full moon ritual so you guys can I can read a little bit about it. Gemini full moon. Is this right? Why do we have a copy of it? And then yeah, we ended up getting married in 3 months. No, engaged in 3 months and then married in 6. And the day that I knew that I was going to spend the rest of my life with this guy, or at least like go down that channel because we were long distance. He was in the army, he just started, and I was still in school, and there was like a lot of logistical things that we had to work out, was whenever I was with him, I could literally just be. And I always say that it was like the first time my soul took a deep breath in this lifetime, and I felt really calm and really centered. And I still feel that way. Like that person, this person, he's my other half, and that's how he makes me feel. And yeah, I hope that answers your question. I'm going to pull up, I've got the Gemini full moon ritual pulled up. That could also be for other people. So my daughters, I've heard this, like soul families and constellations, soul constellations. It's like when family members come in and you have like a sense of knowing. But that's a little bit different than like a love. So if you want to clarify your question, I can go more into it. But usually when people talk about like past lives, they're like, do you know this person from a past life? And I will say this, not all past life connections are good. In fact, I had an energy vampire situation. Gosh, it's been years ago. 3, 4 years. It's been years ago. And I know I knew this person in a past life, but it was not good. And I actually had a soul reading done on them, and they came back as a gray soul, and I had never heard of that. I'd heard of like people being dark souls and people being light souls, which I'm always kind of like exploring the idea of what a light soul and a dark soul means. A light soul is like a soul that is, or person who cares about others and wants to help. And just like, you don't even have to be a great person to be a light soul. You just have to not be bad and not be evil. There are light soul people, like good people who do bad things. I mean, somebody who gets in a drunk driving accident and hurts somebody, like that's not an evil person. That's usually a good person who did something regrettable. And then there are some people just with darkness in their energy. And I don't usually talk a lot about this, and especially since this situation, it still feels so close. It was only 3 years ago. And maybe once I like have more distance from it, I'll share it. Because I don't like to invite stuff back in by speaking it out loud. But you can sometimes sync up with energies that you might have a past attachment to. And in that case, it's like energy vampire 101 is if somebody tries to make it seem like there's a false sense of urgency in a relationship, like you got to do this now, or it has to happen today, or like they're rushing you. Any sense of, what would you call that? Like false intimacy, where they're like I feel like I've known you my whole life, and oh, like you're such a beautiful soul, and I'm sure that in a past life, it's like, okay, enough. Like enough. If somebody is genuinely, like if there's a past soul connection, they do not need to plaster you with platitudes. Like enough. Like if somebody's doing that kind of nonsense and almost like gaslighting you in a spiritual sense, but in the positive way, because eventually there will be like the reverse of that where they use it against you. Like, I thought you said we were soulmates, and I thought you said we'd be together till the end, and I thought, it's like, no, like that's not how it actually works. Okay. like sentencing messages. Okay. I'm gonna respond to this comment in just 1 second, and then I'm gonna finish up on this tangent that I'm on soulmates and twin flames. And I'm gonna see. I have this in one of our rituals. Okay, I'm gonna pop it up. So, energy vampire warning. So while we wish that every encounter we experience here in the physical is honest, transparent, and genuine, unfortunately, some souls are still evolving and have been known to resort to low vibrational tactics that exploit the kindness, open-heartedness, and authentic nature of empathic and sensitive individuals. When conducting this ritual, so I'm referencing the Gemini full moon ritual, which if you just want to get the ritual, you can get it in the shop page. The link is down below. And if you're a Lunar Manifestations Circle member, you have access to this just like you have access to all the other rituals. Okay, so when conducting this ritual, please be sure to do your due diligence with any new individuals that come into your life by meeting them in public spaces, maintaining your personal privacy until legitimate intimacy is established, and both fact-checking and background verifying any potential persons entering your sphere of influence, romantic or platonic. A twin flame relationship can begin with a genuinely serendipitous meeting and evolves organically. So a sense of calm timelessness will pervade the encounter, so any sense of false urgency, demands, or coercive behavior indicate an undesirable match. And then I have a link in there for an interview that Dr. Christiane Northrup did with her daughter, Kate Northrup, about dodging energy vampires. So Christiane Northrup's a Hay House author. She's also a Bantam Books author. She's a OBGYN women's health physician. I'm actually like digging her. Hold on, I'm getting her book out. It's kind of, okay, I'm going to hold this up really quick. And then, everybody say a prayer that this, cross your fingers that this doesn't like topple on me. I just want you to see where her book is. Okay, there it is. It's on the very bottom, so I got to get it. I live overseas right now, and right before we left, we had to get like really serious about the weight that we could bring with us. And so I could really only pick like my top 20 books, and the rest I had to leave. Okay. So Dr. brought my books. So Dr. Christiane Northrup has this book, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom, Creating Physical and Emotional Health and Healing. I read this book in between pregnancies somewhere around 2000. It was before I conceived my second, so conceived for 2015, like 2013, 2014, I probably read this book for the first time. And as I mentioned, my mom is a physician, and so I always like encourage everybody, partner with a physician, like find a physician that you trust and you can listen to. And when I was reading this book, this was the first book that I read as a woman, as a new mother, where I felt like a doctor of medicine who went to like a certified medical school, had a valid license, had, no board strikes against her, was a licensed professional, a legitimate licensed professional, was talking about our chakra systems and our energy systems. And I was like, what? Like, what's this doctor talking about? So this kind of became like my Bible for a while. It was my Women's Body, Women's Wisdoms Bible. And she recently did an interview on like energy vampires. So she talks a little bit about that and how as a healer, people are attracted as an empath, as spiritual beings, non-desirable energies can be attracted to our light. And I mentioned that in the ritual. Okay, so let's see. I think I'm going to put these back here. I think that's kind of like where they're going to live. Now I'm getting my little corner set up. Where was I going with that story? Interesting. Okay, so let me get this up for you. Okay, so you said I tuned in and wait, your question was, hold on. I forgot to pin this. Okay, how and when would you say you have a connection from a past soul? Okay, so that's what I just discussed. And then, and it can go for not just a romantic, which is kind of like what a lot of us focus on. Oh, sorry. Side note. I was just listening to the Juicy Scoop podcast with Heather McDonald, who I love. She used to be on Chelsea Lately years ago, and I stopped watching Chelsea Lately because Chelsea is like, she was like a little bit too hard, and she's got like really aggressive. And I was like, yikes. you don't have to be so hard and mean. But I get it that like Hollywood must be a weird place to be a woman. And anyways, what was I saying? Heather McDonald, really funny, and she's got this podcast, and like some of the shows she has on are like they're called like love cheat shows or love fraud shows, and it's about these generally men who prey on women. I mean, we all know like the trope about a woman preying on a man, but usually when a woman preys on a man, it's more in like a physical aspect, like they use their beauty or their sexuality or their femininity to make men do what they want, right? Pretty straightforward. It's kind of like the tale as old as time. But what we're starting to see now more and more is men flipping the script and doing it to women. So like successful women being kind of love bombed by these men and then being defrauded. And, I think every now and then, even in spiritual communities, that kind of stuff happens. And it's like, it's just gross. Energy vampires will, they'll see a vulnerability and then they will push. They'll be like, oh, you're love and light and serendipity and synchronicity. It was just a serendipity that I was here today. It's like, no, it wasn't. You got in your car, you knew I'd be here, and you waited for me, and now you're preying upon me. Not cool. So that's why I always say, like, especially in this ritual, I'm like, you need to fact check people. You need to background check and verify them, and do your due diligence. Do not let anybody into your sphere of influence or into your energy. Just even your energy. And by energy, I mean like sending you texts, sending you emails, answering their phone calls, letting them be in your space or like in your social media threads and kind of feeling like they have a say over what goes on in your life until you've fact checked and background verified these people. And I was just joking about that with my husband. I was like, gosh, we're so lucky that we were 21 when we got married. And there was Facebook at the time, but it was like so brand new. You had to be friends with somebody who was also at the school. You had to be in college and have like an active college email, like of a university. And then you had to actually know somebody that knew somebody. Like back then, you couldn't just randomly find somebody and friend them. You had to search through like their lists of whatever. So there was like a lot of like fact checking we were able to do in those early days of Facebook because nobody knew that like what was on there was gonna turn into basically early dating things. Because you're like, oh, that looks like a picture of a sister. Okay, he says he has a sister. Okay, that matches up. Not a girl. Like, okay, he says his mom looks like this. Okay, he looks like he likes his mom. So you were able to like background check people that way. And like as a 21-year-old, it's pretty easy to like fact check if somebody who is who they say they are, but a little bit later in life, it can be a little bit harder. Okay, so that was all I was going to say on that. Now, back to your question was, how do you know when you haven't had a past soul? And then I asked you to clarify, and you said, here we go, at the podcast. For me, I was searching info on genealogy point of view when I kept finding on my, in sentences, I believe, is your native language is Italian? Is that correct? If I spoke Italian, I'd be like, ask in Italian. Messages, voice message dreams asking me to find more. Yeah, so that's really common. I don't know about, in this instance, if you're talking about just trying to dig back into your own past life and the messages you were receiving were trying to tell you, or if you're saying that you were getting messages from someone in a past life. I had somebody on the podcast not that long ago, Dean Radin. He's the author of Real Magic, and his is one that I do not have a physical copy of, but his is like a great book to have. I always listen to his stuff on Audible because I will listen to it over and over and over again. And he talks about this idea of parallel existences. Okay, I'm just going to pull up, see if I can get an image. Okay, so this is what his book looks like. Real Magic with Dean Radin. Modern Science and a Guide to the Secret Power of the Universe by Dean Radin, PhD. He's one of the chief scientists at the Institute for Noetic Sciences out in California, Ions. And he talks a little bit about like how past, future, and parallel lives can actually sync up. So you might think that you're getting a message from a past life when really you're getting a message from a parallel life, whether that's somebody that you're associated with in that parallel life or a version of yourself. So that's something to explore. But if you have like a concrete question about how you would go about like finding those answers, let me know, because it's just saying like asking you to find more. Like, yeah, okay, so you said you were given clues 6 months before finding some actual facts. Oh, that's exciting. Okay. I'm gonna try to think of something. I was given clues months before finding some actual facts. Yeah, this used to happen to me all the time. And I always write stuff down. So if you're able to make notes of this side. It's mirrored. I can't figure it out. There it is. If you guys are able to make notes about this type of stuff, anytime you get an intuitive hunch or a hint or a sense of something, write it down and always put a date on it. That way, once it kind of pops, you can go back and check your accuracy, and then you can check for what you what you were tuning into. Was it something that was going to happen, or is it something that had already happened? One example of this is, French is your native language. Thank you. Right before my grandfather passed, about 3 months before the rest of the family got the news that he was going to be passing, I had a conversation with him, and he said some like really interesting things that like he was talking about our loved one, like his people I never knew that are my ancestors who were already passed, but he was talking about them in the present sense, which hospice workers say is often really common when people are about to transition. And they start talking to their loved ones on the other side. And he was just saying all of these things, and the way he was acting, I was like, well, I know he's, older, he's in his 90s, and, he's just a quirky guy, he's like grandpa. And if I had been a little bit less in tune and listening to my metaphysical hunches and insights at the time, I probably would have ignored it and just like, oh, my grandpa's being weird. He was just like messing with me, basically. But he wasn't. He was like basically telling me he was about to go home, meaning like he was going to transition. And so when he told me, I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening like next week. Like the level of it was happening felt very imminent. And I thought, okay, maybe like 3 months. And so I was like, what he seems to be telling me is that he's going to be making his transition soon, not like tomorrow something instantly is going to happen. And in 3 months' time, that happened in August, and then around the November timeframe, so September, October, November, yeah, it's like right around like the Thanksgiving timeframe. My mom calls, oh my gosh, Grandpa's got cancer, he's gonna die. And I was like, yeah. Did nobody else track that when I said, hey, how's Grandpa doing? Like, no? And when somebody's a little bit older towards their end of life, anyways, like in their 90s, not like he's got a huge runway in front of him. So understandably so. But I had said it, well, I didn't write it down, but I said it out loud on the way home. The drive home to my husband was like a 6-hour drive, and I just kept like going over the little things that my grandpa had said. And I wrote it down in a notebook. Because I'd been like noting my hunches and things like that around that time. And he didn't pass for another year or another 9 months. Almost like to the day from when he had told me, like the following, I believe it was like August. And yeah, I just had it. And it brought me peace knowing, and then small little like adjunct to that story. I don't think that's the word, but add on to that story was, it was the end of his life, my grandfather's life. And he was, just like dying of natural causes when you're in your 90s is like any number of ailments that can be the final thing that pushes you into your transition. And I lived about 6 hours away at the time, and I kept saying to my mom, like, okay, should I drive up? Should I wait? Like, should I drive up? Should I wait? Because I was working, my spouse was working, we had 2 little ones, and it was like, if we get in the car and we drive up, then we'll have to like drive back home, and then we get like, can you guys give me a little bit of an idea? But it's like when somebody's dying, it's like, well, do you just come and stay for 2 weeks? And if it happens, it doesn't happen. And I've told this story before about my nephew, who's a quadriplegic, who was supposed to transition. He'd been in a fatal car crash, and we all flew up to Alaska to say our goodbyes, literally getting there within 24 hours from the East Coast to say our goodbyes because he was in a coma. He was 6 years old at the time. His name is Austin, and Austin Irwin, you can look him up. And then he ended up coming out of his coma and living. And so it's not like like sometimes you get there and it doesn't happen in a miraculous way, and then sometimes the transition can take a lot longer. So anyways, I just kept saying like, talking to my grandpa because he came to see me. I'll earmark that story for in just 1 second. And right before he was about to transition, a couple things happened. One, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this, I thought somebody was in the house. Like I literally thought somebody was in the house, and I sat up and we lived on a military base. So I was like, I know nobody's in my house because like it's a really safe space. But I was like still scared. And I sat bolt up and I was like, Dan, like somebody's in the house. And he sits up, he's like, what? And I'm like, there's somebody downstairs. He's like, what? I go, there's somebody downstairs in the kitchen. It's the middle of the night. And he's like, Autumn, what are you talking about? And then I like got really quiet for a second, and I kind of like closed my eyes and went more into like my mind's eye so that I wasn't like in my conscious waking state. I was more in like a kind of a dream state, but we were both conscious because I said to my husband, get up, there's somebody in the house. And he's like, what are you talking about, crazy person? And then I go, oh, never mind, it's my grandpa. And he goes, what? And I go, it's just my grandpa. It's okay. Go back to sleep. He's like, okay. So he goes back to sleep, and then I lay there and I kind of go like, hey, grandpa, like, what are you doing in my kitchen? It's the middle of the night. You're supposed to be in D.C. You're supposed to be in Pennsylvania. I'm in D.C. What are you doing here? Which part of the conversation we'd had a year earlier was him saying, I'm going to come down and see you in D.C. So in August of 2000, I feel like it was 17, maybe 2018, somewhere in there, he had said to me, I'm going to come down and see you in D.C., and that's where he'd been stationed there in the Navy, like during World War II. And he's like, I'm going to bring Bess down and Twyla down. And it's talking about like his mother-in-law who'd been deceased for many years, and my grandma, who I was like, there's no way the two of you were getting in a car and driving down to see me in D.C. Maybe 20 years ago you would have done that, but not now. And so it's just like I knew he was trying to tell me something then that I wasn't, like I couldn't tell if he was playing with me or if he just didn't know what he was saying. And so then a year later, right as we were like in that final week of him getting ready to transition, and the whole family kind of being like, should we come up? Should we not? Because we had all just been up there like around 4th of July. We'd all been there in July. My brothers had come from Alaska. Everybody kind of got to see him. We were all like, is it going to be now? Is it not going to be now? Okay, it's not going to be now. But then making that trip again is, it's kind of tough to like go back and forth. So I have that waking state visitation, and he was like banging around my kitchen trying to make coffee, and it's hilarious because that was the exact time that he would get up to make coffee in his house, like crazy early, like 3 a.m. he'd get up and start making coffee, and you're like, why are you making coffee? It's 3 a.m. He's like, oh, you gotta get up, and then he was like an Army or a Navy guy, and worked for the telephone company, so he was always like early to rise. And so he visited me at a time doing something that he would have done in his waking life, but everything was like kind of out of time and space order, but I knew exactly what it all meant because of the way that it was unfolding. So he had told me the previous August that he would come and visit me, and that he was like going to bring all these people who had been passed that I'd never met because they had passed before I was born. I was like, okay, Grandpa. And then he gets his diagnosis, and then he kind of rounds home, and everybody kind of thinks, oh, maybe he'll bounce back, maybe he won't. And I, of course, want to hold out hope. We always want our loved ones to stay with us as long as they can, or as long as they want to. But I also like had this knowing and feeling in my heart that it wasn't going to happen, that he was, probably going to make his transition sooner rather than later. And then when I had that visitation, I knew that that was kind of like we were in our final stages of him transitioning. So I had the dream state. He's banging around my kitchen trying to make coffee. He's like, where's your coffee pot? I was like, I don't have a coffee pot, Grandpa. I just use a French press. Why do you use it? And I was like, it's middle of the night. Like, only people who tune into metaphysics and like know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. And if you're watching this and you're like, what is this lunatic talking about? It's not the channel for you. Like, go read some books. If you're interested, go read some books. And then come back and we'll chat. Or just stay around and listen to all these wild stories. Because I remember when I used to hear like other mediums tell these stories, I would always have these experiences, but I wouldn't write them down and I wouldn't track them so that I'd be like, well, I think I thought that. I think I felt that, but I had no one to tell, and I just kind of kept it to myself. And I used to have all kinds of experiences when I was a kid. And then my husband's just like a cool guy, because he's my soulmate. Like we were talking about at the beginning of this call, and part of our journey in this lifetime is us navigating how we tap into these alternate fields of reality or ways of experiencing the world while also still like living in the here and now, raising a family, having careers, you know. So it's a balance. And the final story of that was 3 days before my grandpa passed. I had said, my mom said, okay, you gotta come, this time it's for real. And I was like, okay, Mom, like, is it though? Like, you know, I've been saying that, and I know you don't want me to drive up if it's not for real, but is it though? And I was out behind my house, and I look up, and I have a picture of it somewhere. If I was barely pull it up. Wouldn't it be cool if you could just be like Siri, find the picture of the eagle? Can you even do that? Is anybody from Apple watching so I could see if I can do that? Siri, find photos from Washington, D.C. Oh, it's just going to Google them, isn't it? Oh my gosh, no, it actually did it. Holy cow, it brought up like photos. Huh, you guys, you can do that with Siri. That's cool. So I said to my grandpa, like, Grandpa, I'm going to need need something. And I look up, and there was an eagle on the top of my roof in Washington, D.C. And we lived along the Potomac River, and I had never, ever seen an eagle there, ever. And it was not just like flying by, it was perched on the roof of my house, like sitting there. And I just sat there, I have it on video. I was like, oh my gosh, this eagle's here. And then my mom called back and was like, Autumn, I need you to come, you know, for Grandpa, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, okay, I'll be right there. I know it's time. And she was like, how do you know? And I was like, I just know. I'm just seeing if I can find this, because I asked for pictures, but oh, no, just like the baby pictures. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. See, that's what happens when you like go through your phone and then you're like, what was I doing? What was I doing? Oh, right, I was getting a picture of an eagle on my roof. And then I'm going to, okay, I'm getting close because we're in Washington, D.C. That was January. Things just happen so, oh my gosh, I did this. Oh my gosh, my babies. Sorry, okay. I will find the picture and then I'll go back to story time. But that's essentially what this time is. Like, I'm going to come on live every so often and share whatever information I can share and tell you guys stuff. This is Everly. These are a lot of Everly pictures. That's the Commandant's house in Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. We used to go by. I always loved walking by there. That was another thing. The Naval Commandant was right next door to where my older daughter went to school. And I would be walking by and thinking of my grandpa, and then I would get these pings like, it's happening, it's coming. Okay, so what day is that? That's October. Okay, so I've gone too far. What year are we in? 2020? It's like 2018. All right. I'm going to give myself another 30 seconds to find this, and then I'm going to... April. So it would have been June? Yep, okay, so it's after that. Sorry, guys. You guys can, if you're new here and you're not sure what's going on, this is an Ask Me Anything. Go ahead and put your questions in the chat. And if you've been watching for a minute, you know that I am looking in my phone for a picture of when an eagle came to our roof the year that my grandfather passed. What year did he pass? If Everly was born 2016 and then 2017, it would have been 2017 or 2018. To go back to, this is funny, I wasn't looking for this, but I'll show it to you because we're talking about it. You're talking about like past lives and meeting people. So this is this is just a screenshot of the day that I met my husband. I think it was like the second night, and we went out on a date that my older brother had set up. That's in front of the Nittany Lion. And we went back like 10 years later and got a picture of us and our dog and our girls. And I remember we just asked somebody random to take this picture. And then this is like before we had smartphones. So this is like this is a picture of a printed picture. Isn't it crazy? I'm a millennial and I'm still like, I remember pre-internet days. And I'm actually so glad. Like I didn't have an iPhone until I was like 25 or 26 even. And I can't even imagine going to school now, like without my iPhone or anything. And, but I'm almost grateful because I feel like I had to really develop interpersonal skills because sometimes you're like, hey, did you take notes? Like by hand? Can I copy them? Because like not everybody had computers. Okay, so that was the night we met. Okay, now like I don't know why all these pictures are on here randomly. This would have been right around our 10-year anniversary that I had these on my screen. This is from our wedding. Somebody dared him to do that, and I told him that if he didn't take the garter off with his teeth, it was bad luck. And he was such a sweet, unassuming young man that he believed me and did it. I still feel bad that I told him that. Okay, so that was from our actual wedding day. We had like a big church wedding, and oh, thank you. You brought this in. Somebody's asking about past lives. And then, thank you. Okay. Speaking of this, the handsome guy himself. All right, he brought those books that I was talking about. We might have to do like another Ask Me Anything where I actually go through these books. And maybe I will save it because I have so many that I want to chat about. I've only talked about that one, so we'll have to come back. Okay. And then we actually eloped. So we eloped in November of 2007, 11/22. We eloped on Thanksgiving Day. We got married by a justice of the peace in New Orleans. We were like 20 years old, and our whole family was like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, we're going to get married. And they're like, you know what? Okay, yeah, this actually makes sense. And I think if it would have been a pairing, like any like him with anybody else or me with anybody else, like both families would have been like, I don't know about this. I think this is not a great idea. But they didn't say that. They said, yeah, great idea. Do it. And so we eloped in 3 months and then married in 6. We eloped we got engaged at 3 months. We met in May, got engaged in September, got married in November, and then had our big church wedding in May of the following year. And then we moved to Hawaii. Oh, here, I found the eagle. Guys, just gotta just stay with it. If you're watching this on replay, I applaud you. Like, hopefully you're watching it on 2x speed. And if you are here in real time, thank you so much for your patience. Okay, so this is the eagle. This is in our backyard. I'd walked out, and I kind of heard like, and I was like, what is that? And I look up, and there's an eagle. Yes, my screen's cracked. I need to fix it. Actually, I have a brand new one sitting around that I was going to do today. I hate putting new screen things on me. So look at that. Eagle on my roof. And look at this. It's just so bizarre. It was like the sun was coming up behind it. And, you know, for our family, I have a lot of family in the military. My spouse is military. Oh, this is a video. Let me see if I can turn it up. And it just represents military for me. So, okay, let me see if this is, or I have no idea what I'm saying in it.
And an eagle literally just flew onto our roof and landed. This is our roof. The green machine is in.
That was our old car. Oh,
shit.
Oh, just dropped an S-bomb. Oops. It was so crazy. And it was there long enough for me to go back inside, get my phone, come back out, take some pictures, and then record it. And then the really, really cool thing was that This is why I couldn't just jump in the car and like go help at a moment's notice. I had little babies at the time putting on all their clothes.
So pretty. So pretty, huh?
Oh, my baby.
I love it, Baba. Does Sissy know you have her chopsticks? She does. And her underwear. And her shirt. And her bow. Oh, so pretty. Blow kisses.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, not that I wouldn't want to be there, but we had other stuff going on. My little one used to steal her older. Ellie was just telling the story of when Evie was little and she used to steal all your clothes and put them on over top of hers. My little one would go in her sister's room and take everything. Okay, so that was a fun story. Fun trip down memory lane. If anybody saw what year that was, August 9th, 2017. And actually, what's really crazy, what's really, really crazy, that was on August 9th, 2017. And on August 9th, 2018, my husband's grandmother passed away. And that was another one of those things, like, I knew it was coming. I mean, we all did, like, especially when somebody's a little bit older. But paying attention to your hunches and writing things down definitely helps. Okay, let me read the comments really quick, and then we've been going for like 40 minutes, so we'll get out of here unless there's some other questions in the comments. You said, this is going back to an earlier thing I was talking about. Do you believe that women have a more sensitive connection to their world? I do. I would say yes, because it's, at least in the Western world, like more societally acceptable and encouraged for women to be sensitive. So women are very, like, we need a community to survive. Traditionally, ancestrally, we are very community oriented. And we're very tuned in, especially as mothers, or even just as nurturers, as part of a group in kind of like our ancient ways of being till now modern times. We have to be tuned in, and we have to be taking, like, paying attention to any of the subtle cues that we get. So even a woman, like they call it like mother's intuition or gut intuition, and I have a ritual that I talk about it. It's the Virgo, it's either the Virgo new moon or the Virgo full moon. Again, if you're just watching this, all of the rituals are on the shop page. Links are below. And if you're a member, all of these are in the members circle, and I kind of like cross-reference in and out. I was a high school teacher for over a decade and built curriculum professionally. And so I love like cross-syncing stuff. So I always reference and I always cite information when I have it. So I did a ritual about this, and it talks about, it's not just for women, it's like for all individuals, how our gut health is actually linked up to our intuitive senses and like, I don't want to call them like psychic senses, but like our way of interpreting the world, because our guts are a microbiome that represent our macrobiome. So like if you ingest something and it makes you sick, it causes your body to encapsulate that illness, because your intestines are, it's like crazy. They actually act as an organ that is in some ways outside of your body, because it has, your intestines have the ability to like trap bacteria and trap pathogens and keep them from like the blood barrier of the rest of your body, right? So like if you ingest E. coli, ideally, like hopefully you've got like a strong immune system, it just like passes through. Or oh gosh, what did I have? Yeah, I had E. coli last December. Whatever, I had it really bad. And your intestines are supposed to function as like this microbiome that kind of traps us. If you're a doctor, a medical provider, a gastroenterologist, and you're watching this, hi, thank you for watching this channel. Please like coordinate and talk to doctors about this kind of stuff, because yeah, I talk about the medical, like the metaphysical aspect of this, but a doctor would obviously, or nurse or PA or anybody in the medical field would be able to give you the scientific background of it. But what I'm trying to say is that if our intestines or like if our inner worlds are sick, then it can be like a representation of our outer world. So it's like you wouldn't go and eat something that makes you sick and then keep showing up in that space. being like, oh, I'm just gonna like keep eating this. It's kind of like that old idea, you don't like SHIT where you eat. In a spiritual sense or a metaphysical sense, an intuitive or empathic sense, yeah, I would say that women societally get the okay to be more intuitive, and a woman can be like, oh, I don't go to that part of, like, I don't walk that way home, or I don't go down those roads, or I don't walk down that alley. Or I don't know, that guy just makes me feel weird, or like, I don't know, there's something about that lady. And we are, I would say, allowed to say those types of things. And it's not like second guess, but I do kind of think that like if men are just, oh, I just had a hunch, or I had a feeling. The only place I really see that being like a common thing is in law enforcement, where it's like really encouraged for law enforcement professionals to pay attention to their hunches and pay attention to their sixth senses. And I do think that there is a pretty strong correlation with men in the LGBTQI community who are leading into their spiritual and psychic gifts. Some of the top people in our field, like James Van Praagh, Tyler Henry, John Holland. Actually, I don't know about John Holland. I don't know that he's ever discussed his partnerships publicly, so I'm not going to speak on him. But I know James Van Praagh has publicly spoken on his partnerships, and Tyler Henry has publicly spoken on his partnerships. And I would say that they tend to reflect the, at least in America, at least in the U.S., at least in all the professionals I know on like the big, professional level, and then even in like the small, circuit level, like county fair and Spirit Fest fair and things like that. There are some healers who are not. They are more like in a, what would you call it, like a traditional heterosexual type relationship, but they also seem to be more fluid and more open. It's very rare that I have met a married man. Nope, that's not true. Reverend Funk is a married guy who's into spiritualism. So I don't know. I would say yes to your question, but times are changing, and maybe in 30 years or 10 years or 3 years or 6 months, if you were to ask that question, I'd say, that's how it used to be, but not so much anymore. Because hopefully we're all realizing that we're all just spiritual beings having a human experience, and these skin bags that we come in just are there to decorate, basically, and don't need to say much about who we are other than how we can be in the world with them, meaning like how we can show up in our physical form. Okay. And from persons who passed away a long time ago. Yes, you watched the Dean Radin vid. Oh, okay, so your question was from persons who have passed away a long time ago. Yep, okay, so in this case, it sounds like you're asking about your ancestors. Absolutely. Yeah, you could have past experiences with ancestors. I've heard so many stories of this. I'm going to try to find the book. Okay, give me a second. Again, I didn't plan on going through all my books today, but here we go. This, so Dina Miriam wrote My Journey Through Time, a spiritual memoir of life, death, and rebirth. So this would be a great book to read. Phone 7 Bureau to answer your question. She was on episode, I think it was like 108 of the podcast, I believe. And we talk about past lives and like being born into family groups again with people from past lives. And I definitely think that, yes, there is something to that. And I also think that our ancestors do reach out. I know that I get a lot of guidance from a great-grandmother on my mom's side, Grandma Littlefield. And she has come to me in different times when I didn't think I was long for this world, honestly. I was like, this one's for the birds. Not interested. I got to get out of this place. It's not for me. This is years ago when I was like in my 20s, like early college age. And I was like kind of trying to check out, like unintentionally, but intentionally. I was like taking risks that I shouldn't, walking down alleys that I knew I shouldn't. My mom had this big rule, like don't walk home alone at night. And the college that I went to school in the University of Oregon, and back in like the early 2000s, there wasn't really there wasn't Uber. And unless you had a friend that had a car that you could call and be like, hey, can you stop what you're doing and drive to campus and pick me up? there wasn't really a way to get home other than to walk or ride your bike because city buses would have stopped running. And I think there was definitely a period in my life where I was taking risks that I knew were risks just to see what would happen because I wasn't so sure about this time-space reality. It really wasn't. I was like, I'm in college learning about peace studies, and I was a peace studies major with human rights and conflict resolution, and I read a lot about like war and conflict and how to find peace. And I just would read these stories and stories and stories, like humans have been doing this for millennia, like or longer. Like, why haven't we figured this out? Why are we still fighting over the same things? And Abraham Hicks would say that it's like this idea of contrast. That the whole reason we come into human form is to experience contrast, and then through that contrast, make better decisions for our collective consciousness and our species and our world moving forward. And I now would definitely agree. When I was like 20 years old and I had no idea what Abraham Hicks was, and I was being repeatedly told that I was crazy for having the types of thoughts that I had and the feelings that I had, and that I was just too sensitive and I needed to just chill out and relax. So I'd be like, okay, I'll chill out and relax. And then that would not be good for me. Because how do most 20-year-olds chill out and relax? And yeah, I was prescribed medication to deal with like anxiety and depression. I was hospitalized. Like I had a lot of stuff going on that I was like, if being in this time-space reality just means that I'm constantly stressed because nobody understands me and I feel like a crazy person and they think I'm a crazy person, like, why am I here? Why? And my great-grandmother would come through to me, and I was just kind of in my mind because, again, like I wasn't raised to like really know what this like metaphysics was, mediumship was, talking to our loved ones in spirit. So I would always just kind of imagine that I was having these conversations with her, and I would just like think like, well, what would my great-grandmother have said to me? And then I would kind of like just have these like made up conversations with my loved ones. So my great grandmother would have been an ancestor because she was not alive when before I was born. She passed away before I was born, is how to say that. And then my older brother, who I talk a lot about on some of my podcast episodes, who was actually killed when I was 16. He was murdered overseas, and his death was unsolved. I would have a lot of conversations with him. And for me, those were kind of like they were early mediumship experiences where I wouldn't tell anybody about them because I didn't want to be labeled crazy. I didn't want to be put on medication. I didn't want to be hospitalized. Like, just didn't want to do all that stuff. So I would just have these conversations in my own mind as if to say like, okay, so if there's a point to this whole thing, what would you say it is from your point of view? And I would gain insight and peace in that way. So in that way, like our loved ones who are both our ancestors and were never in this current time-space reality with us, but could be existing with us in a different parallel experience, can communicate with us. And then our loved ones who were in this time-space reality with us, like my brother, who has transitioned to another plane. So he's dead. He died. He died in 2003. I used to joke that he was like my most alive brother because he was the one that I have four brothers. Four. Actually, I think I have more. My dad knows what I'm talking about. But four that I know of and talk to. And I used to joke that he was the one that I would communicate with the most because I just had to think of him and he would answer me. And then my other brothers, I was like, had to call. Okay, so that's a joke. Hope you guys who are watching enjoy the laughs because it's a little scattered. And these will get better. His studies, Dr. Radin, are comforting because it makes us realize I'm not alone. You're not alone. Nope. When I was in my mid-20s or early 20s, I found Lilydale, New York. I've told that story a ton. And after I stepped foot on in Lilydale, which is a spiritualist community in the United States, it's up near Buffalo, New York. From that day forward, I was like, okay, there are other humans on this planet, in my country, that speak the same language that I do, where if everything goes wrong in my world and I let myself explore my spiritual gifts and I let myself like kind of see if this is something that is safe for me to explore, they've managed to create lives for themselves. They all, like many of them seem like they have loving partners, loving families, they have homes, They somehow make an income to support their lifestyle. You know, it's not a flashy, flamboyant lifestyle, but it's a life. And that at that point in my life, like that was all I really needed. I just needed to know I wasn't alone. And I would go to Lilydale to find others like me. But it was kind of like summer camp. It was like summer camp for mediums. And I was like, hold on, I'm going to need to meet other people in real life who, I don't know, I just did this with my hair. It was hot. Oh, it was hot. That's why. And yeah. So I realized I wasn't alone. And that's kind of why I am now moving into this virtual space where I'm starting to share my authentic experience more unabashedly, because I realized that the only consequence that I experience when I share my authentic story, well, it's the opposite. The only time I experience a consequence is when I don't share authentically. And then I feel like I'm stifling and pretending I'm not who I am, and I get sick, or I like sabotage. And yeah, it's just not worth it. It's 2020. There's too much else going on in the world to hide who I am. And thankfully, I'm so blessed to live and be from a country that has the First Amendment and has the Constitution. It's the freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition, and I use it all the time. And I'm just really grateful to be living in a time-space reality where, as a woman, I can speak my truth, talk about my lived experience, and not be afraid that I'm going to get like put up on a, pyre and burned at the stake. That's what social media is for. It's the new witch burning trials. If anybody hasn't noticed that, the cancel culture nature of everything. Which, if you're watching this and I'm not for you, thanks for watching, and I hope you find what you're looking for. Bye. And if you are watching and you're enjoying, thanks for watching. All right, I'll answer a few more, and then we're gonna go. We've been here for over an hour. So you're saying totally understand. This happened to me through dreams months before loved ones' passings. Yep. Who said this? Rakesh Mishar. Beautiful floral smiles. Thank you. I think I'm gonna make this like my bookshelf. I was mentioning my daughters have homeschool over here on the other side of this camera. So my office, my recording space is now half and half. I can never get away from teaching. I was a teacher for over a decade and I'm still doing it. Yeah, I'm so internet savvy. That's funny. That's hilarious. You guys, I was joking the other day that Joe Rogan has a podcast, which I never really got into. I've got 4 brothers, and some of my brothers, 2 of my brothers are into it, and my husband listens to it sometimes. And I never really saw the allure, because I knew he was an MMA guy, mixed martial artist, and I'd grown up with that type of male energy, and I don't mind it, but I'm not wonder who's gonna hit who tonight and how they hit and what they train. And so I kind of didn't get his whole thing, that he just hosts these really long form podcasts, and then he puts them on YouTube, which is kind of what inspired me to finally just start putting more on YouTube, because it's such a cool platform where you can put your information out there, and for the people that it resonates with, it resonates, and for the people that it doesn't, there's so much else out there. And I was going to talk about this. Remind me just a second. And I went back and I looked at his very first episode. YouTube recommended it for me, and it was only from 2013. But somebody in the comments said how this guy, referring to Joe Rogan, made 2013 look like 20. Because how this guy made 2013 look like 1997 is hilarious. And I was like, that's what anybody who watches my channel is going to say. They're like, remember when she seemed polished and kind of had edited videos? They were really low quality, but at least she was calmer and less scattered. And then she just started going live. But you guys can see, because the last live that I did, 3 nights ago? No, I guess it's been a week now. I did a test run, and then I did a live, all in a matter of a week. And here I am. Actually, you know who I got this from? The idea of these pop-up, the eCam Lives, which I'm going to pay for their subscription, eCam Live. There's a little shout out to you guys. I'm so impressed with your platform. I'm going to use it a lot. But I got it from Denise Duffield Thomas, who's the author of Chillpreneur, and oh my gosh, she has so many books. I've read all of her books. She's got a membership called Money Boot Camp, which I'm a part of, for wealthy women. You can come join me and her. I mean, I'm just in there. It's hers. But I love being in there because it kind of stigmatizes women being wealthy and lets us like celebrate our wealth, because I know I struggle sometimes with my abundance, and it's just like I keep coming back to this idea that like my name is Autumn. Like that is my given name. It's Elizabeth Autumn, but I've always gone by my middle name. My brothers go by their middle names. My daughter's middle names are Winter and Spring. Like it's our name. It's not a made up name that I made up for my company. And it literally means like the time of harvest, like the time to take in your abundance. And I do the new and full moon rituals, and I feel like I'm so good at planting, but I don't always enjoy the harvest. And she's got this great group called Money Boot Camp, where it's like successful women and some men and non-binary individuals just celebrating their abundance and realizing that the more abundant we let ourselves be, and the more abundance we let into our lives, like the more we can help others. And like to kind of go back to Joe Rogan for a minute, because I just totally went off like on so many tangents. I think it's really cool the way that he has created a platform where he is allowed to say whatever he wants because he created it and it's his space, whether you agree with it or not all the time. But something else I've noticed is he is a rising tide lifts all boats kind of guy. So especially during this pandemic, I noticed he had like a slew of comedians come on and just kind of talk, which was so nice to listen to like comedians talk about life, because they're always able to kind of find like, especially in dark situations, like some sliver of humor, some sliver of light, which as soon as you can let even a little bit of light in, you can move closer towards healing. And I'm all for that. And I noticed that, and I thought, what a cool way to use your platform and your wealth to share with others. And so I just was like, you know what? If Joe Rogan did it however many years ago and made a podcast and it was like looking all crazy in 2013, I can do it in 2020 and figure it out. Okay. And here we go. I would love to stay. Oh, wait. Grocery shopping. Okay, go grocery shopping. Okay, thank you. You guys don't have to stay. You can go grocery shopping because I know that things are limited nowadays. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to say is if you're interested in anything that I've been talking about, like when I talk about my moon circles, you can go to goldenotterdivination.com / join now. You would also just go to golden otter, can't even spell my own company, .us, and it's the join now page. And then we also have, I'm sorry, it's Moon Circle. We used to say join now. There might be a wait list right now. I'm not really sure where we're at with members because we just had a big enrollment at the Pisces full moon. So we're kind of like re-examining that space because there used to be one-to-ones offered with every membership, and now we're past that point. So we're going to connect in like different ways. And I'm going to start hosting, we'll still have our moon circles, but I'm going to start hosting these more intimate, like celestial being and like moon goddess, or what would be the masculine term for that? I know it'd be like probably moon god, but for some reason that feels weird. I feel like goddess sounds really great, and then like moon god. I don't know, if you're a man and you're watching this and you have an idea, please let me know, because I really love to celebrate the sacred masculine, like the divine masculine and the sacred aspects of masculinity, because they balance our femininity as females. And a great book for that, which I'm going to do another like AMA and what I'm reading or what I've read, one of my favorite books. These are just the ones I have hard copies of. Like I have so many on my Audible. I clean my house and I listen. Chakra Empowerment for Women. This is by Lisa Erickson. She was a guest on season 3. She's a chakra-based energy worker and writer, and she talks about women's energetics and sexual trauma and healing. But she also talks about how female empowerment is male liberation, and I just love the idea that it's not like there's no battle going on. It's just a dial turning for balance. And once we kind of reach those points, we can be in harmonious relationships like that. Check out. Okay, and then the last thing I was going to say was, we were talking about this, is, sorry, I forgot to pin this. There it is, goldenotter.us moon circles. figure it out. I'll figure it out. Okay. So my journey through time, a spiritual memoir of life, death, and rebirth. Dina Miriam talks about past lives, and we did already just talk about this. And there was somebody in this story, and it's been years now since I read this, but it's somebody in her work circle who came into her life, and she thought they were going to like have a romantic relationship, and it just never materialized, and she couldn't figure out why. And then she, through a series of dreams and visitations and all that, went back to a past life experience and realized that they had like some unresolved karma. So it was coming through in this current life as like a work relationship where it could never quite go to that level because they had other things that they were working through, both in this life and then in the past life, which was possibly a parallel existence. If anybody's like into quantum theory and quantum mechanics, and like time travel and wants to come on the show, definitely reach out to me because I haven't hosted a show with that topic yet, and I really want to. All right, I'm gonna have to save the rest of these for another time. Thank you all so much for joining me in this space. This was really fun. This is our first Ask Me Anything. Moon Circle members, I've moved my calendar, it's over there. We will have a ceremony on September 17th. It is the Virgo new moon. So I will see you September 16th at the Virgo new moon. If you would like to join us, you can do so by going to goldenatter.us and clicking Moon Circle and join in. If enrollment is open at this time, like I said, one-to-one memberships used to be included, and now we're kind of pivoting. But there's still a really safe and sacred aspect of it because we do private Q&As as just a community, and you have to remember to access those. So with that, I'm going to close it out. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful and safe, this is Labor Day weekend, and love and light, Autumn. All right, bye. See you at the Virgo new moon.